Marvel has just dropped the trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The third installment in the Ant-Man film series has been hyped for a long time, and it might just be one of the MCU's most exciting movies during Phase 4. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of the Easter eggs that were showcased in the Ant-Man 3 trailer, along with some of the things you might have missed in the last movie. Let's begin. First, a new city in the MCU. Much of the events in the trailer of Ant-Man 3 take place inside the Quantum Realm. We're then told that the Quantum Realm might just be what we all thought it was. It cuts to a shot of a high-tech military base filled with soldiers, spaceships, and crazy gadgets. The base is located inside an unnamed city. But believe it or not, this might not be the first time we've seen this city in the MCU. In fact, we got to see a glimpse of a city just like this in Ant-Man and the Wasp, although in both cases, the city was never directly named. Marvel fans seem to agree that this city will likely be the MCU's version of Chronopolis, which we've seen in the Ant-Man comics before. Chronopolis is a city that's ruled by a tyrant named Kang the Conqueror, and is powered by an engine called the Heart of Forever. There are some differences between the city shown in the trailer and Chronopolis from the comics though. Most notably, Chronopolis is canonically circular, but in the movie trailer, we see no such thing. That might mean that the movie writers have changed up some of the details around, but the leading theory is that the city's still Chronopolis. Up next, Hope has a new hairstyle. One of the biggest criticisms of the Ant-Man film series has been regarding the character of Hope Van Dyne, played by Evangeline Lilly. While her performance has been largely praised by both fans and critics, a lot of the fans of the comics were disappointed by her hairdo. It looked nothing like the iconic short hair that Hope had in the comics. Instead, she had a bob in the first film and longer hair in the second one. Fans that frequently read the comics had a hard time relating the film version to the comic version. They simply looked too different. But now that the trailer is out, we finally know what Evangeline Lilly is going to look like in the new film, and fans of the comics are pleased. Lily's hair has been cut down to nearly the exact size of the comic book version of Hope, and although it could probably use a little more hair gel, it generally works better than the first two movies. It seems like the writers aren't going to let these small little details slide anymore. Coming up, the Pym House makes another appearance. While this might not be a shock to anyone, the iconic Pym House is confirmed to be making another appearance in Ant-Man 3. This is the house that Scott broke into in the first movie to find the Ant-Man suit. Hank Pym grew this house in size so that it would be livable, and he also moved it around in various locations. It was eventually moved to be closer to the beach. However, because of the snap, it was abandoned for 5 years. But now, with Ant-Man 3 coming out, it seems like we're finally going to get the house back. It seems like it's in great shape and back to its original location in San Francisco. Next, the mysterious rings make another appearance. Some of the most ominous objects we've seen throughout the movies in Phase 4 of the MCU are the rings. No one really knows what it is, but Marvel keeps putting them in films and TV shows to suggest they'll play a huge role in future installments. During the trailer, we see large rings located all over Kang's universe. Sometimes, they're even seen around large buildings. These rings have the exact same engravings on their sides as the smaller rings we saw in Shang-Chi. To put the icing on the cake, those engravings were also seen on the bangle that unlocked Kamala Khan's powers in Ms. Marvel. In both Thor: The Dark World and in the season finale of Loki, the rings were shown to be pathways between different worlds. The latter also explained the concept of the rings a little further. Loki explained how the multiverse was initially visualized by using these rings by stacking them on top of one another. This is probably the most Easter egg in the entire trailer. You should definitely keep a close eye on these rings when you watch the movie, because they're likely going to play a huge role in the overall story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, let's take a look at some of the things you might have missed in Ant-Man and the Wasp. First, a reference to the Matrix that you might have missed. Lawrence Fishburne will forever be known as Morpheus from The Matrix, no matter how many other movies he appears in. Joining the cast of Ant-Man gave him a chance to take on another iconic role. But as we all know, a Matrix reference was bound to happen in one way or another. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, Dr. Foster is shown in front of a blackboard where he's written an extremely complex for his students. But if you look closely, one of the only words that you can easily see written on the board is Matrix. This is obviously no coincidence, and you can hardly blame the filmmakers for putting that in. There was no better way of referencing the movie without going too overboard with it. Up next, the actor that played young Goliath. While we're still on the topic of Lawrence Fishburne, here's another thing you might have missed about him. During Ant-Man and the Wasp, we see a flashback showing a young version of Dr. Foster, Goliath. The actor that plays him bears an uncanny resemblance to Lawrence Fishburne. If you didn't check the official cast list, you'd think that either Marvel is crazy good at finding actors that look a certain way, or they simply use CGI to make Lawrence Fishburne look younger. But But believe it or not, the actor that played young Goliath is none other than Lawrence Fishburne's son, Langston Fishburne. That explains a lot. Coming up, Stan Lee's cameo. There are a surprising number of people that paid almost no attention to the car chase scene during Ant-Man and the Wasp. However, if you look closely, you'll see an old man be in complete and utter awe by watching the car chase. That old man is none other than Stan Lee, the creator of Ant-Man himself. Of course, this isn't the first time we've seen Stan Lee in Ant-Man. He also made a cameo in the first movie as a bartender. It's a shame we'll never get to see Stan Lee in another MCU film again, but this was the perfect way to end it. Next, the Centurion tease that you probably missed. The Feds are one of the primary villains in Ant-Man and the Wasp. In the film, Sonny Burch eventually contacts the FBI to let them know that Scott and Hope are technically violating the Slovakia Accords, and the FBI agent that responds to Sonny's request is a man named Jeffrey Ballard. Even though Jeffrey Ballard isn't ever mentioned again throughout the film, his name struck a chord with a lot of the comic book fans that watched the movie. In case you didn't already know, Jeffrey Ballard is the name of a supervillain named Centurion in the Iron Man comics. Ballard was also a government agent in the comics, but he eventually turns into a supervillain by taking on that name. Although it's highly unlikely that we'll ever see Centurion or Jeffrey Ballard in the MCU again, it was definitely a nice touch to officially add him to the MCU canon. Who knows? If they run out of ideas, they can include one of the most forgettable villains in Marvel's history. And finally, Scott refers to himself as Giant Man. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, we see the once tiny Scott Lang transform into a massive 60-foot-tall superhero, while still not officially changing his name. However, once his ex-wife turns on the TV to check the news report refers to this seemingly new superhero as Giant Man. While this might not seem like something worth paying any attention to if you've only seen the films, if you're a fan of the comics, this is a big deal. We've seen numerous superheroes adapt the Giant Man identity in Marvel Comics. The first person to do so was Hank Pym. Dr. Bill Foster also later appeared as both Giant Man and Black Goliath in later comics. And the most recent superhero to adapt the Giant Man persona was Raz Malhotra. Of course, in the Ant-Man movies, Scott Lang doesn't officially become Giant Man. It's just a nickname that the news report gave to him. It was still a nice callback for fans of the comics, and one day we might just see an official Giant Man in the MCU. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think this is going to be a good movie? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.